Our colleagues Carol Leonnig and Vaughn Hilliard are out with some gobsmacking exclusive new reporting on simmering tensions within J.D. Vance's Secret Service detail over crazy requests by J.D. Vance and his family, considered completely unprecedented compared to every past vice president of the United States. From that new report, quote, on Thursday last week, Secret Service agents groused amongst themselves as they prepared to deliver another perk to Vice President Vance's family: join a military helicopter crew to fly his young son to his golf lesson, end quote. The trip was canceled due to weather, but three sources tell Carol and Vaughn this, quote, the Secret Service staff's complaints about a planned chopper ride for an elementary school student reflects a building morale problem inside the team of agents assigned to shield Vance and his young family. Agents have shared concerns internally about Vance and his office, pressing them for trips and assignments that some agents consider an inappropriate or even unprecedented use of government resources compared to prior vice presidents. The agents pulled in to protect Vance and his family have also become fed up with the last-minute travel demands that Vance and his wife, Usha Vance, frequently place on the security team. The vice president's office provided a statement to MS Now saying in part, quote, the Vances are grateful to the men and women of the U.S. Secret Service who serve our country with distinction. Joining us at the table, senior investigative reporter Carol Leonnig. To the last sentence of this story, it is a holy you-know-what.
Thanks, Nicole. Thanks for being patient as we tried to work with this story and work with our sources to make sure that it was above reproach. You know, the Secret Service doesn't complain a lot. I've covered them for a long time, but this was the kind of tip I felt like we should try to figure out if it was true, because when they're angry in this way, it's sort of a red alarm. They're an overworked, under-resourced agency, and now they're being asked to go on a military helicopter flight on Marine 2 with the son of the vice president to take him to a golf lesson from D.C. across town to Andrews, former Andrews Air Force Base, now Joint Base Andrews. Usually that kind of travel takes place in an SUV. In this case, we learned from sources that the vice president was planning to go on this trip as well. The trip ultimately got canceled because of thunderstorms that day. But they flagged it to me, these sources, because it's reflective of this bigger problem you just beautifully outlined. They are feeling really strapped by the last-minute travel and the unprecedented requests from Vance. And some of them use the word royal treatment, you know, that they're not used to providing royal treatment to the children of a vice president.
Let me read more from the story, which is absolutely extraordinary and incredibly detailed. First of all, quote, the White House Military Office, which reports to the president, would have to authorize the use of the helicopter for the golf lesson. Operating the helicopter costs taxpayers between $16,000 and $24,600 per hour to use. That's according to a 2022 Defense Department budget estimate. An administration official familiar with Vance's travel said the vice president planned to accompany his son. But to take your kid to golf to charge the taxpayers $25,000 an hour?
You know, it's reflective for me of how much more VIP helicopter travel there was right from the get-go of the Trump administration. This presumption that anybody important could basically use a helicopter as an Uber. And it preceded that horrible, horrible fatal crash between a passenger jet and a military helicopter that was training, at least, to do a lot more VIP travel. There was just buzzing all over Washington, D.C. with these helicopters. And in this case, the Secret Service is kind of waving the flag, like, is this where we want to go with the use of our resources, which are pretty limited?
Let me read a little bit more from the story. They have a strong culture, Secret Service. Anyone who's ever been privileged to travel with the president has the privilege of benefiting in that sort of umbrella of protection. I certainly did when I traveled with President Bush and Vice President Cheney, especially after September 11th, when they were very cognizant of how anxious people felt. And it is a real tight culture. Your sort of walking in small groups in and out of helicopters and in and out of tight corners and walking through kitchens of hotels. I mean, you really spend a lot of intimate time together, and they sort of have some gallows humor. Let me read this quote: "The frustration over the last minute asks from the Vances has boiled over to the point that agents have made custom coins and stickers to mock the frequency of the vice president's and his family's last minute travel. Using J.D. Vance's Secret Service codename Bobcat, according to images reviewed by MS Now. Featuring an image of a bobcat's head, the coins and stickers read, quote, Bobcat OTR, which is an off the record, right, an unplanned stop, Bobcat OTR Survivors Club. Explain.
These challenge coins and stickers are, kind of a black market token for agents to share some sort of arduous assignment they've had together, to also foster sort of mutual respect and trust about their adventures. Some of them hijinks, some of them really deadly serious, right? And in this case, we were steered to look at some of these images because they're basically now making fun of the fact that they are survivors of working for J.D. Vance and his family. I want to say something with care and in fairness to the Vance family. They're the first vice presidential family with really, really young kids at the Naval Observatory in a long time. But I'm so glad you mentioned the history of Dick Cheney, because it was a threat after 9/11 to Dick Cheney's children that led to vice presidents' children and grandchildren getting more and more protection. That's where it all began historically. Biden wanted the same for his children and his grandchildren. But the Vance family is in this situation of how do we take care of our kids, raise them in the city, and also have Vance serve as a vice president. We want to put our hands together for a father who wants to spend time with his children, but maybe the agents maybe don't want to do it at $26,000 an hour.
Well, and there's no reporting in this piece, at least, that suggests that anyone objected to driving them to the lesson in an SUV. This was about the helicopter specifically, right?
It absolutely was. And Vance being on the helicopter makes it more justified, if you will, because Vance, every time the helicopter travels, it's Marine too. It's an official trip. But a golf lesson raises serious doubts about how official or how necessary it was. The vice president should be allowed to spend time with his family. Agents are kind of crying out, we've had enough of this, and this is the worst example for them of a series of cases in which they feel the agency is being burdened.